Is the real estate market crashing? This is the question that I feel it keeps coming up right now. We're seeing a lot of YouTube videos from industry experts. We're seeing a lot of news stories about how the market's down by 10%, 15%, 20%, 25%. This home sold for 30% less, all these things. So what's actually happening? I'm going to get into that. I'm also going to do a separate YouTube video and dig into much more detail on the real estate market. Obviously, in my monthly update videos, I like to touch on a lot of different things. Let's get into it. As always, please subscribe to the channel, like the video. I will bring you as much information as I can to help you make an informed financial and real estate decision for your specific situation and scenario. So before I get into that though, there's a new scam out. Be careful, tell your friends, tell your family. Watch out for it. These guys are very convincing. They almost got me. Basically, somebody will call claiming that they're from the sheriff's office, that you missed jury duty. You now have a bench warrant out for your arrest. Plot twist, they don't arrest you for missing jury duty. These guys will try to get you to pull cash out of the bank and go buy, either gift cards or money orders or whatever it is. And the whole time they'll tell you, you need to go buy these things and then you need to go to the court or go to the sheriff's office to pay your bail or pay your bond. And then once we clear everything up, we'll refund that back to you. Sounds very convincing, especially since they are telling you you're going to need to go to the court. But of course, then they want you to share that financial information over the phone. Oh, tell us what the serial number is, scratch off the authorization number, all this stuff. Of course, it's a scam. So watch out for that. I'll do a little bit more involved video on some of the details of what they're trying to do. So moving on, solar. I pay close attention to solar. Some of my clients have really had some great financial benefit from that over the years, but it has to be done correctly, and there's always changes in that industry. So the newest thing now is Assembly Bill 942. This is actually going to the state Senate for a vote. The gist of the bill is to get everyone moved from NEM 2.0 to NEM 3.0. If you're not familiar with that or don't know what that means, I did a video in the past on solar, broke down the difference between the two and what that shift meant. That I think it was from 2023. Go watch that video, it'll explain most of this. So if you're on a NEM 2.0 system right now and you own your solar, there is some value to it in the marketplace. Appraisers don't give much, if any, but there is value to that to other buyers when you put your home on the market. So what this move would do is all those NEM 2.0 customers actually had a 20-year grandfather clause from the time they installed their system. So you basically had 20 years before you'd get pushed on to NEM 3.0. Well, this bill is trying to change that. So they want all properties on NEM 2.0 at transfer to move on to NEM 3.0. So obviously if you don't sell your house or inherit it or anything for the next 20 years, you're fine. But anybody that is thinking about possibly selling their home, anybody that receives a home through maybe a trust inheritance or something like that, you might lose that NEM 2.0 status if this bill goes through. So really, really big change. A lot of people are up in arms about it, not happy about it. So be aware, just one more thing to watch out for as you're in the market looking for homes to buy, or if you're a seller deciding when and how to market your home, be aware, and I will post more information as it becomes available. So moving on, the reason you're all here, let's talk about real estate. So at its core, I'm sure we can all agree that supply and demand are the key drivers for the real estate market. Excessive new construction can increase the supply, higher prices and higher mortgage rates put downward pressure on demand, and we'll start to see a shift. So for about 10 years from 2012 to 2022, we were in a period of very high demand, well, not very high, but high demand and fairly limited supply, which is why we saw home values steadily increasing for that 10-year term. However, 2022 mortgage rates more than doubled, and that really changed that supply and demand dynamic. Over the historical long term, 7%, roughly 7%, give or take, isn't that high. It's actually an average rate. However, because we got so used to cheap money and 3% rates, it feels very high, and it has changed the affordability significantly for buyers. We're seeing a shift. The market supply has grown. Poor affordability has caused the demand to drop significantly. And I would say overall, we're seeing a shift in the market. Now, what I will say is markets are different. So as I've always said, the Sacramento region is a different market than Tampa Bay, Florida. It's a different market than Dallas, Texas. It's a different market than Nashville, Tennessee. So we have to look both at the the national macro trends and charts, but then we also have to look at our local data as well to get a clear picture of what's happening. I would say the key word for the next 18 months is going to be distress. That is going to be the difference in what type of market we start to see both nationally and locally. Distress is going to be anything that maybe somebody's behind on their mortgage payments. Maybe one or more homeowners lost their job, can't afford to make the payment. Maybe they just happened to buy at the wrong time or had a really bad negotiation and they actually owe more than they could really sell that property for today, but they have to sell. Those are all distress situations where people are being forced to sell no matter what, and they have to drop that price and they're desperate. So we need to watch out for those. If we see too many distress situations, that is going to shift the market. I would say now we are seeing a correction. However, I don't know that that's going to move past correction and move into crash territory. Some states have been building a lot since COVID. They're able to do that. California is not. We have a lot of environmental controls, and our building and developing is really expensive and it takes time. So that is one thing that has kind of held our supply-demand curve stable in the Sacramento region. As you're gathering information, watch out, as I always say, watch out for these clickbait videos. They have their flashy thumbnails and it's, values are down by 20%, 30%. This home was bought for this price and now it's selling for this price. That's a 30% drop and the market's crashing. And they'll use all these charts, they'll flash them in front of you, and then they'll pick out one scenario of one property that maybe sold in 2022 at the peak of the market for this outrageous price that it really never should have sold at, and now it's selling at a fair market value or less because maybe things have changed and you don't have the full picture, but it's a great story to tell for their clickbait. So just watch out for that stuff. Try to gather more data, be impartial, look at things from a macro and a micro level. In reality, yes, we are seeing some states that are having a really rough time right now. Home values are dropping. The national real estate market is very soft, and I would say more of the experts and large data aggregation companies are saying there is a possibility we could see a national decline in home values for 2026. Possibly overall 2025, but definitely 2026. So that's something to watch out for. I'm going to do a couple more videos. I've got one in the works right now. We're going to talk about the top 3 things that could push the market down, and then also get into the top 3 reasons why I personally don't expect that to happen in the Sacramento region. But for now, let's talk about our local market. So everybody keeps asking me, hey, Zach, how is the market? How's real estate in Sacramento? The reality is right now we really have 2 totally different markets. One is a seller's market, one is a buyer's market. So I would say right now the buyer's market accounts for approximately 2/3 of all of the active listings and sales volume. The buyer's market these are the outdated homes, the very average homes. Maybe you have a tract home, 2-story tract home in a neighborhood, no downstairs bedroom, very common. Sorry, nothing special about it. You can get that home repeatedly in the same neighborhood or 20 other neighborhoods, right? Maybe homes that have some type of a challenge, right? They back up to a busy street, they back up to high voltage lines, things like that, maybe set them apart and they're just not quite as desirable to buyers in the current marketplace. So what we're seeing is those homes are sitting on the market longer, they're having multiple price reductions, and eventually either sellers give in and give some concessions just to get the house sold, or they pull it off the market and the home actually never sells. So that's 2/3 of the market right now, that's the buyer's market. So the other 1/3 is, I would say, right now, it's a seller's market. Those homes are seeing multiple offers. They're seeing full list price closings or sometimes over list price. They're getting into bidding wars and they sell quickly. So those are the unique properties, the special properties. You don't see them come up very often. So when they do, buyers rush to try and grab it. Those homes are often, maybe a single story, a cul-de-sac lot, larger than average lot size, or fully renovated. Maybe it's completely remodeled and it looks like a Pinterest house. Maybe it's a single story with a pool and solar in a beautiful backyard. Whatever it is, those are harder to find, and those homes are experiencing a seller's market right now. So if you're thinking about selling your home and you want to find out where on that spectrum of buyer to seller's market you currently sit and how to move yourself closer to a seller's market, maybe get a bidding war and get top dollar, let me know. I'd be glad to sit down with you and put a plan together. If you are considering selling, I would say my advice right now is to start sooner rather than later. Really start working on a clear plan. Don't just go, it's been easy, I'll just throw my house on the market and it'll sell. That is not the case. You need to have somebody that knows what they're doing, that is going to properly market and sell your house. And you need to have a plan before even going on the market to get your home ready and really maximize that property to catch buyers' interest and get it sold. Tri-County stats. Let's talk about that. So we have all of our data for the month of May now. Available homes increased by 15.8%, pendants increased by 3.9%, and homes sold increased by 1.6%. So good movement across the board. The interesting thing though, that is almost a 50% increase over 1 year ago in the number of homes for sale. So inventory is way up. It's also a 7.5% drop in the number of homes sold over the last year. So again, supply is up, demand is down, and that is the trend we're seeing all over. So days on market dropped from 33 to 32 days, but the time on market is up 23.1%. So it's taking longer to sell this year than it did last year. Sold price to list price ratio dropped from 99 to 98%, fairly typical, and that is the same as it was a year ago, so that's held stable. The median sold price from April to May held stable at $600,000, and that is also the same median sold price that it was a year ago in May of 2024. Values have really not moved. They fluctuated up and down a little bit, but year over year, we're flat, as I expected. Months of inventory increased from 2.3 to 2.6%. It is showing signs of consistent increase. So that again is a very common trend. Inventory is up, and that is aligning with the national trends. So digging specifically into Placer County, overall it's telling a similar story. Number of homes for sale increased by 17.7%. Pendants are down by 5.6%. Sold homes increased 7.5%, and available inventory is up 47.1% over last year. Pendants and sold have dropped almost 10% since May of 2024 though. So interesting to keep an eye on. Days on market moved up from 32 to 36 days for Placer County. Homes are sitting longer on the market before selling, and that is a 38.5% increase over a year ago. So homes were selling much faster in 2024. Let's see, the sold price to list price ratio held stable at 98% in Placer County. That is a drop of 1%. So last year they were selling for 99% of list price. And here we go. The median sold price from April to May increased by 2%. So it's up to $675,000, but that is actually the same value that it was at 1 year ago. So $675,000 in Placer County in May of 2024, same as today. Months of inventory did increase from 2.5 to 2.7 months in Placer County, but that is a 60% increase over 1 year ago. So again, we are just seeing the same trend. Inventory's up, demand is down. Definitely going to see a soft market, so be prepared for that. If you're a buyer or a seller, this is one of those markets. It's going to be slower. It's going to require a strategic plan. It's going to require experience, and it is definitely going to require on our part more effort and more work per transaction for our clients. So be ready for that. I would say buyer affordability is probably one of the biggest pieces that's putting the brakes on the market right now. Buyer affordability is really tough. We saw a lot of inflation. We saw rates go up. Home values and prices are up. So it's really putting a lot of downward pressure. Stay tuned. So I'm going to do a more detailed video, and I'm going to dig in and show you some of the long-term trends, some of the short-term trends, how I interpret those, what I look for, and then potentially where that could move. So I'm going to do a whole separate video about that. So stay tuned. And as always, if you have a specific scenario, if you want to talk to me more in detail about what your plans are to buy or sell over the next 12 months, give me a call. I'd love to sit down with you. We can go through all of this information and put together a strategic plan for you to successfully make that happen. So thanks again. Have a great month, and I look forward to talking to you in July.